And today we will be discussing a lot about the recovery of the foundations of Indian knowledge system. 12 evidences from a calendar for the year 2022 produced by Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. IIT Kharagpur, though it is considered as one of the premium institutes in India, seem to promote and produce non-scientific evidences for the Indian knowledge system based on some of the panelists that we will be discussing in depth today. Looks like the calendar is focused on promoting stuff such as initial evidences. They are talking about Aryan invasion, which is a myth according to them, and the Indian sacred spaces have been hijacked by the Western colonial forces, is what their version of the story is. Whereas the panelists that are joining with us today to discuss in this topic and review the entire calendar of 12 months, their story is a little different. So we will be delving into details. And however, let me put this in perspective for all of our viewers of Rakshana Television. This is an opportunity for all of us to review the content of this calendar on a monthly basis and expose if there are any lies, if there are any misrepresentations of the content that they are producing in the name of IIT Kharagpur, which is reputed as a scientific or an engineering based or very scientific institution, one of the premier institutions of in India. However, what they have produced seem not to be of that scientific temperament background. So that's the cause of the concern. And today, to review the calendar and also talk about some of the details in the calendar as an introduction to the overall refutation program for the next 12 months, we have joining with us from Mumbai, Jerry Thomas from Mumbai, and also Narendra Singh Sahu from Mumbai. And from the studio, we have a distinguished professor who's got a PhD in Dalit human rights from Kakatiya University and also represented India in 2017 in Columbia University to participate for World Conference on Caste Discrimination, and also in 2001 participated in the Urban World Conference conducted by United Nations UNO, basically as a student of law. So today we have Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu with us to discuss on these topics. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
So to begin with, what is this calendar about, and how people from different backgrounds have responded? Some televisions also responded, some newspapers also responded in their own way though. And if you can please give us a brief about what this calendar is about and why should people from scientific temperament should be concerned about this calendar. Jerry, over to you.
Thank you, Praveen, for this opportunity. And at the outset, I would like to say that we are all for the Indian knowledge system. And if the Indian knowledge system, the scientific temperament, scientific methodology can be applied to the Indian knowledge system, we are all for that. But unfortunately, what happened in the IIT Kharagpur calendar is, in the name of scientific temperament, they have given us all the lies. They have twisted the facts. So, as an Indian citizen, under the Article 51 HA, which gives us the duty to promote scientific temperament, I would like, with the permission of the other panelists, to take a bit of time just to give a review of the calendar itself.
Yeah. Before you do that, Jerry, I would like to give you a couple more minutes to prepare for that presentation. And before you do that, you quoted a constitution and you quoted the duty of a citizen to promote scientific temperament. Let me go to Gali Vinod Kumar Garu and get his insight on what are the duties. I mean, is it really a duty of the Indian citizen to delve into explaining such stuff produced by the institutions such as IIT Kharagpur, which are of course funded by the taxes that you and I pay? Sir, Vinod Kumar Garu, what do you see? Do you see production of such calendars which promote a certain ideology from the Indian, they call it Indian knowledge system. I mean, of course, you and I and every panelist on the discussion today are not against Indian knowledge system, as long as it is constitutionally, promoting the scientific temperament and based on the scientific evidences and facts, etc., historical evidences and facts, etc. What do you say? Do you see that is something as a duty of the citizen of this nation?
Yeah, every citizen, not every citizen of this nation, they, including the Prime Minister, is a citizen of this country.
Right.
Including the President, a citizen also in this country, because the important position of the country, Prime Minister, President, and the Speaker of the Parliament, the governors, the CMs, everybody should be an Indian citizen. That means they also have to bind the scientific temper, which is defined in the Constitution of India as a fundamental duty.
Fundamental duty.
Yeah, fundamental duty.
Doesn't this apply to institutions 100%. Also?
It is also apply for every institution. Every institution should follow the fundamental duty. Otherwise, they will violate. If they will violate, it is a punishable.
Punishable offense.
Yeah, it is. Yes, 100% it is punishable, because Indian fundamental rights also, if anybody violates, they also punishable. Even fundamental duties also, anybody violates, including this Prime Minister, including the President of India, including anybody can violate this fundamental duty, they also punishable.
Right.
So that is one of the basic, incorporation of the fundamental duties. So it's not only scientific temper. So there is a secularism, the national integrity, national fraternity, national sovereignty, national culture. All these are all including the fundamental duty. We must protect the environment.
So as you rightly said, national culture. Yeah, yes. What if IIT Kharagpur wants to shelter their effort in producing this calendar as we are trying to promote our culture? Yes. Can this be understood in that way?
So the Kharagpur producing that is Aryan culture. This is not Indian culture. This is not Indian knowledge system. Knowledge system. Indian knowledge system is a Dravida culture. The Dravidas are produced with the knowledge, not the Brahmins. The Brahmins are never the part of the producers. They are exploiters. So the Dravidas, the native people of this country, they produce the knowledge, native knowledge. So in the name of these Dravida community or native people, the Brahmins are occupied the knowledge. They are now dominating. They are creating myth. They are creating the Brahmanizing of Indianization.
So you're directly your allegation against the IIT Kharagpur is 100%. They are promoting Brahmanism in the name of Indian knowledge system.
They are promoting Brahmanization. That is utterly wrong. Brahmins are not Hindus. The Indian people are Hindus. The Sindhu people, the people lived in the river, in the area of the river, they are the Hindus, not the Brahmins. They are Aryans. They are aliens. They are not the native people.
Not from this country.
So
okay.
they want to. Yes,
these are very acidic statements against against IIT Kharagpur also.
100%. The entire education system now in the hands of Brahmins only. Not only IITs. You take law, you take education, you take any educational institution, the highest body, authorities are Brahmins.
Okay.
So they are ruling their hegemony in education, Brahmanism in the name of Indianism. Okay. Or in the name of nationalism. But nationalism is quite different from the Brahmanism. So Brahmanism is nothing but it is a monopolism, or it is called as imperialism of the Aryan race. So the Brahmins are belong to Aryans.
Okay. Okay, so that is Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu on his initial comments. Let me go back to Jerry once again. Jerry, over to you. What do you think? You were about to say something and I kind of diverted the attention of audiences to Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu. But over to you now.
Yeah, Praveen, thanks for the time. I would like to initially, if the time is there, I would like to go through the leaves of the calendar.
Yes. So
that if all of us are at the same page regarding that this calendar itself doesn't pass any test of scientific temperament. So I would like to share the screen, which has leaves of the calendar and with comments. I'm not going to in-depth refutation, but our audience should know that we are doing this because we are concerned about the scientific temperament.
So does it also mean you are planning to go into a in-depth refutation of each and every point that they are raising in the days to come?
Absolutely, because the arguments are so twisted that until and unless one spend sufficient time on each of the leaves, we will not be able to demonstrate how erroneous this entire argument. What we can do right now is at least give a taste of it.
Okay.
In the sense, even the first basic test, it doesn't pass. I'm surprised that a reputed institution like IIT Kanpur is producing such calendar.
Right.
Can I share the screen?
Sure. Go ahead and share the screen.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yeah. So for the sake of the audience, this entire calendar, the 12 months, has been divided into 3 sets of 4 arguments. Like Jan to April, they have called it as basic pointers, where they are going to refute this Aryan Dravidian myth, as they say. And from May to August, they have supposedly given decisive set of evidences refuting it. And September to December, the last 4 months, they have supposedly educated us on why the colonial rulers forced such myths. So this, you have to keep it in the background, because this is their structure that they have given in the initial leaf of the calendar itself. Now,
okay.
When you go to the next page, so here you have the January leaf. January leaf, as you would see, they say that in the Tibetan side, there is a certain type of horses which are predecessor to the current domestic horse. Now, the people might wonder, what is the point of bringing a horse which is there in the Tibet right now, as part of refuting their so-called Aryan Dravidian myth? The reason is, we have no evidence. As Dr. Mahadevan, who is a preeminent Indologist who is acceptable even to them, as he points out, we have no evidence of horse in the Indus civilization. There is absolutely no evidence of wheeled chariot.
So help me understand it a little bit. Can you go back to the previous slide that you have shown? The first thing that you are saying, or they are saying on their calendar in January 2022 is, there are certain kinds of horses. Those kinds of horses are found in India before the Aryan invasion, is what they are claiming, right?
In the initial reading, we might think like that, but what actually they are saying is, in 2021, there are certain types of horses on the sides of Tibet, which supposedly are predecessor for the current horse in the evolutionary process.
So in Tibet, there are some horses which are the predecessors of the horses that we have here in India.
We have everywhere in the world.
Everywhere in the world.
So as per the evolution, this horse should have actually lived 5 million years ago. But we have the horse even now in 2021. So this supplies certain people who came to the Tibet. And they are connecting this, saying that so far you have been arguing that in the Indus Valley civilization there was no horse. Now we have a horse here who should have existed for at least from 5 million years before. Therefore, your argument that Indus Valley civilization does not have horse does not hold any further. That is your argument. And they have given a reference, is that Down to Earth, a magazine. They have quoted February 15, 1996. But as soon as you verify, this is why I said it doesn't pass the basic test. It gives the background, you found it, it was Michael Paisel, and then it goes on to say, since the horse is still alive, that point, the horses is still alive, they took the blood and they sent it for genetic test of these horses. How different is from the current horses. So at that time itself, in the same magazine which they have quoted, the genetist had questioned that we should not be jumping into conclusion that this is the predecessor, because even if you leave the domestic host right now in the white forest, it can become this shape. So we have to wait for the gene test to come. And the gene test came. And the gene test came and said that there is absolutely not a single difference between the current host, in the sense the normal domestic host, and the host that is shown in the Tibet. IIT Kanpur has not seen the genetic test at all. The genetic test came almost 10 years back, 10, 15 years back.
So do you see, so help us understand, help our viewers understand this a little bit better. So you are saying they have quoted a reference from a magazine, and within that magazine they have also disproved their, they have also disproved the point that IIT Kharagpur is making. They are also saying that there is no, the domestic horses that we have and the horses they are there right now, they are the same. There is no difference. They are not predecessors at all. So even in that case, they have started misrepresenting this magazine also, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. In the magazine, it was just a question that we should be careful and not jumping into the conclusion. Because the test was still going on in 1996.
Okay.
And what happened is, the test results came. And the test results are published in this, The Last Barbarians, Michael Pissel, he is the one who found it. He published a book.
Okay.
And in his book, he has stated that there is absolutely no difference in the gene of the host that is found in the Tibet and the host that is otherwise we all know as the current domestic host. So IIT Kanpur has not taken into this account. See how clever they are.
Wow.
First of all, the argument is very convoluted, that it takes time for you to understand how a 2021 host is a proof for the Indus Valley civilization. But even when you try to understand, they have misrepresented. So this is, I will not take this much time for the next leaf, but this is how they have done it.
Okay.
February 2022, they have given saying that the swastika is there in the Indus Valley civilization. Therefore, it was a Hindu civilization, or it was a Vedic civilization. That is what they are saying. Swastika and cyclical time. But this Indus seal, you can in fact find it in any of the cultures, all the ancient cultures. I have just taken one. In fact, when we go into the in-depth refutation, we can actually prove it from many different ancient cultures. This is from, say, the Latin America.
Okay.
They also have, you check the third picture on the screen, that is a swastika. Does that mean that was a Vedic culture? It doesn't mean that. See, they are just juxtaposing two images and jumping into conclusion, which no Indologist would ever do that. See, third, they have taken, this is the third leaf of the Marx leaf of the calendar, what you see it in the screen. So you have the Buddha there, and behind the Buddha, they have placed two images from the Indus inscriptions or Indus images. And the Pashupati seal is on the, what you see on the right hand. When you look at the screen, what you see on the right hand is the Pashupati seal from the Indus. Now they are saying that Pashupati seal proves that the yoga existed at Indus Valley.
Okay.
Now, what kind of argument is this?
Yeah.
If you go to the screen, you will see another, I have taken an Egyptian scribe sitting there. Now, Egyptian scribe is also sitting just like any other person. Does that mean the Egyptian civilization now is a yogic civilization and a Vedic civilization? There can be hundreds of pictures like that. You see actually how their so-called argument comes into picture. Again, Erpil. When you come to the Erpil, their argument is some of the Indus Valley wheels had 6 parts. So they are saying the 6 parts are 6 seasons, which is there in the Hindu culture. Do you see any connection? I can actually show 6 part wheel from any part of the world.
Right.
There is absolutely no connection. You are putting your meaning into the text. When you are reading an ancient script, you will have to take many of those things, the context at which is placed, everything. So we will not look all those things, but just to give a taste. Now, the decisive argument comes. So far it was pointless. In the decisive argument, May 2020-22. So there is a dancing naked girl in the Indus Valley civilization, which we all know. That sculpture is there. They have juxtaposed it with the, say, the Bharat Mata picture that was drawn by Tagore, Abhindranath Tagore. So, what is the connection between the 19th century Bharat Mata picture and the naked dancing girl of the Indus Valley civilization? They say the naked dancing girl of the Indus Valley civilization is Bharat Mata king. What is the connection?
Right.
Now, if you go to the ancient Egypt, they also have a naked statue of a nude girl there. Does that mean the Egypt had a Bharat Mata country? And if this is Bharat Mata, if the naked dancing girl is Bharat Mata, why don't they place the naked dancing girl till now, even now when say Bharat Mata ki jai to the naked dancing girl? Praveen, you imagine this. If somebody else has done it, put a naked woman and said that this is Bharat Mata, that place would have been burned down by right now.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now, for their ideological purposes, they can go to any extent. However illogical, however nonsensical it is, as long as it suits their purpose, their sentiments are not hurt. But if it was done by anybody else, their sentiments would have been hurt. They would have gone there to burn down the institution itself. They have connected a naked woman, naked dancing girl to Bharat Mata and said this is therefore hence it is a Vedic culture. How are they coming to this conclusion? Same is the unicorn. See, there is a unicorn image in the in this inscription. Now they have taken a 16th century Roman photo and put it together.
Okay.
And the idea is to say this unicorn has gone from India to the Rome and not the other way. Now, and then they have quoted a verse from the Rig Veda about the horse. Now, my question, see, if you go, actually this is all confused arguments. Now, what is the connection between horse of the Indus Valley civilization and what is the connection between the unicorn of the Indus Valley civilization and the horse of the Rig Veda? There is absolutely nothing, because the people who study the ideals of the Indus Valley civilization, they say that we are not able to come to a conclusion which animal it is. It could have been a deer. It could have been a bull. It could have been any of those things. So how did they actually even come to the conclusion that it is a horse? So, and how did they come to the conclusion that that is the horse that is mentioned in the Rig Veda? See, first of all, you cannot have a horse in the Indus Valley civilization because there is no independent attestation of a single horse, not even a horse born in the entire Indus Valley civilization and the early Harappan civilization. So you cannot come to the conclusion. They are just taking two pictures and putting it together. Same is the case with the July 2022. I will not delineate. August 2022 again they took a seal of the Ashwins. Again, you have to keep in mind the horse is troubling them a lot. Ashwins also cannot be there in the Indus Valley civilization because Ashwins are associated with the horses.
Right.
Now, just because you see the twin herd, all twin herds are not Ashwins. They have come to the conclusion. See, this is what they have done in the decisive arguments. We have looked at the basic pointers, decisive arguments, and now finally, why the others have forced it. So they have taken a missionary who came to India and they said, see, he has found that millions, you read that similarity between millions of words evident in Indian languages and others in the European tree of linguistics. Praveen and to the other panelists, I want to request, in any language, first of all, you will not have millions of words. For example, if you take English, you might have 5 lakhs words. Now, if you are going to find millions of similarities, that anybody who knows how many words there would be in a language, they themselves will laugh at it. It cannot be millions of similarities. There cannot be. See, but look at how they are exaggerating the thing.
Mm.
They say, oh, they found that they have to invent the Aryan method.
Mm.
Again, the connection is not clear. And then they speak the same thing in October, which I will skip. And then they come to November. And then they take Max Muller. And then they say, see, these are the people who created the Aryan method.
Mm.
Initially, in their calendar, they had quoted Swami Vivekananda. But when it comes to Max Muller, they forgot actually what Swami Vivekananda mentioned about Max Muller. And as all of us know, the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, volume 6, Conversations and Dialogue, Swami Vivekananda said Max Muller is the incarnation of Sayanacharya. The same incarnation of the Sayanacharya, they will throw it into the dustbin because now it doesn't suit their purpose. Look at the hypocrisy, look at how they twist the arguments and all. And then, when you come to the December, I'm moving very fast, December they say, Aryan fallacy and the two world wars. Can anybody ever tell us what is the connection between Aryan theory and the First World War? Okay, Second World War I agree. But what is the connection between Aryan race and the First World War? Absolutely no connection. These are the 12 leaves of the IIT Kharagpur. Finally, I want to end this leaf review with this. They had given IIT Kharagpur has immense pleasure to forward the same, and they will be focusing on. They have given some of the disciplines that they are methodologies that they are going to look at it. GPR based exploration, laser induced breakdown. I want to ask this question. Does even a single of this methodology it come from the secret of Vedas? No, absolutely not. These are all products of the modern science, which came out of the Christian theology, as I believe, at least in the modern science has produced it. So they are borrowing the credibility of the modern science, and then they are going against it. See, if IIT Kharagpur has started a separate institute, the people associated with the calendar has started a separate institute called Vedic Science, and produced this calendar, nobody would have even bothered. They also know, nobody cares about it. So they borrow the credibility from modern science, but instead of furthering it in India and making it beneficial for the country, they actually are promoting something which they should have ignored, or at least they should have redeemed by applying the science. So these are the 12 leaves. I am sure that you would agree, all of us would agree that these are all absolutely unscientific, illogical, irrational way of juxtaposing images, picking from somewhere and then putting your own meaning in it. So this is what IIT Kharagpur has.
Yeah, well, this is very nicely reviewed calendar, Jerry. However, though the juxtapositions are illogical and sometimes not relevantly connecting the dots, but yet the attempt made by IIT Kharagpur is definitely going to impact a lot of masses because it's a reputed institution and people would like to take something that comes out of reputed institutions as true, and logically we have found, as you have rightly pointed out, that it's absurd. The content is absurd, and we may have to educate our viewers to be careful about what comes out of IIT Kharagpur from now on. Anyways, Naren, what do you think, looking at Narendra Singh Sahu, looking at the calendar, what are your first reactions, and have you also had similar experiences from others pointing out to those theories, like especially in the month of January and February, as they are talking about Aryan and Dravidian, Aryan invasion into India, etc. So how do you look at it?
Well, Praveen, to be honest with you, the first time I saw this, I was surprised. Actually, that's my first view on this. Is that the first time I saw this, I was really surprised that man, a premier institution like Kharagpur, I said no, I want to verify this. Can IIT Kharagpur really do something like this? It was, honestly speaking, it was, I can understand, political propaganda and stuff. And I see all these moves, as I've said earlier in my other programs also, that it's a politics of culture and a politics of religion. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's just politics. And I was really surprised that really IIT Kharagpur, I'm very proud of my Indian culture and I'm very proud of my country. And so I have nothing against genuine history, but history being contorted. And, then I read through some newspaper articles and all, especially in Indian Express, where, there were experts who have criticized such a move and the content being put in that. And you can look at the, paucity of content by what Brother Jerry said, that is a naked girl standing with a hand on her hip and they are saying this is Bharat Mata. Actually speaking, it is offensive to think about it also like that. If this had been done by anybody else, there would have been a huge ruckus, huge riots, and 20 FIRs being filed from 20 parts of the country and all those things. But here they are actually applauding it. And as it's really sad actually, where this entire situation is going. And as Brother Jerry and you also said it very well, it is basically, if it had been done by some Vedic Science Institute, nobody would have given a damn about it. But now the entire name of IIT Kharagpur being attached to it, to give the credibility of IIT Kharagpur to it. And IIT Kharagpur is a premier institute, one of the most premier institutes in the country. Of course, it's not a research institute, so now looking at the way it is being done, I can understand why it is not a research institute. You getting what I'm saying? So to give that credibility, to give the credibility, I guess this has been done. But I would have really appreciated some sort of a good expert sort of, new theories or new possibilities being floated. But this is worse than, clutching at straws, the way this entire thing has, come into place. And I really don't know where this is going to stop, Praveen. And I really hope that the other experts, other even right-wing, left-wing experts, have some sort of self-respect, because such theories is going to do nothing good. It's just show Indian scholarship in a very poor light. Just imagine they are saying that these Indian words are there in the European dictionaries, in European languages, millions of words. Okay, as Jerry rightly said, no language has millions of words. But then, okay, I can always say that, okay, English language has got like 100,000 words, and across all the European languages, if I combine it together, there will be millions of words by that definition. But then, without you establishing a chronology, whether those words came in from Europe to India or India to Europe, just because something is showing up somewhere else, you're saying that this is borrowed from me. You first have to establish that chronologically it evolved or originated from me. I am ground zero, and from ground zero it is propagated ahead. Then only these things would make sense. But this I'm sure that you've done something on this. There are some digs also in South India where it further confirmed the entire thought of Aryan invasion. They've used the word of Aryan invasion because it's more inflammatory, if I can say that. But it's more of an Aryan migration that's being discussed out, and not really an Aryan invasion. There are digs also in South India to that effect. And as acknowledged by experts around the world, the oldest language in the country is Tamil. It's not really any of those Aryan languages. And this entire, attempt made to make these languages subservient to the so-called, if I can say, the Aryan languages, it's really appalling. I really hope that the academic circle takes note, and true Indians have, also speak up. It's not a matter of national respect. It's not a matter of national pride, and anybody who comes against this is an anti-national. You have to evaluate true scholarship and then derive it from there. That's what I can say.
I know you have done some work on the genetics of Aryans in coming into India and etc.
Yes.
We may delve a little bit more deeper in the days to come. But let me come back to you in a couple of minutes, and if you can please help us understand what is the what is the basic understanding of Aryans either invading or coming and settling here, etc., from the genetics point
Yeah.
of view. I think there is also a book released recently by Joseph.
Yes.
But help us understand that a little bit. I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. Let me go to
Sure.
Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu and get his perspective on the, he also mentioned about the Brahmanization or the Sanskritization of India. And let me get some perspective about the education system. So you mentioned about the education system and how it is going, in what direction it is going in India, especially with the new education plan that they have proposed in 2019, I think. Since you are in the academic circles, how is it going to affect the Indian masses, especially people who who come out of the schools? Even in the schools, there are the textbooks that talk about Ramayana as the true history, Bharata as this, Mahabharata as this true history, and Bhagavad Gita need to be taught in every school, is what the circular is saying. My daughter goes to school and she comes home and she talks about Ramayana as if it is the true history. I mean, epic being taught as an epic is absolutely not a problem, but epic taught as a history is where the concern is. How do you look at this change in India these days?
Actually, new education policy system is going to create the slaves of Brahmanism. The single word I want to say that.
Why?
Slaves.
Why do you think so?
Why? Because they are not depending upon the temper of science. The temperament of science, it can the science is the only the which can save the world, not the fictions. Though now the entire Indian knowledge, in the name of Indian knowledge, the fiction stories, whatever the epics are there, they are telling that Ram, Bhagavad Gita, this, that story, these are all real facts. In the faith of the people of India, the Rama temple was built. So the judgment, the judges, so-called judges are given the judgment basing on the faith. You can't imagine that judgment should be based on the evidence, but judgments are based on the faith. So faith is it is a fiction. It is not reality. But even the judges are also giving judgments on the faith. So that is against of the constitution and the law. Actually, what happened in Ayodhya case? If you see the Ayodhya case, see, totally it is a blind faith. They have given the judgment in favor of the Hindus. So that is absolutely wrong, against of the constitution and the law, the IPC. So that's what, though that means the entire judiciary is Brahmanized. Most of the Brahmins are there in the 80s. Still till the date, the entire judiciary system, executive system, education system, all the system of administration of justice are controlled by the Brahmins. So these they want to make it as a Brahman, the Brahmin ideological hegemony in the name of Indianization or in the name of Hinduization. So that is the one of the danger you can find out in the new education policy.
But Professor Saab, we should all realize, I think, that no matter how much we speak from here, from a platform like this, maybe a few thousands may listen to it and they say, okay, this is what is happening in India. As a current affair, they might just, go from there. But these policies are made from the government of India. These policies are made institutionally. These policies are implemented in India institutionally, politically, and also the governance side and the human education system side, or HRD side. These things are brought into the place, and these are kind of pushed into the system, education system. So do you see a way that since you come from education background as well, how are the institutions, for example, Usmania University or Kakatiya University, Hyderabad Central University, JNTU, Jawaharlal Nehru Technical University, how are they going to assimilate this information into their system? Do you think they'll be happy with this?
In the name of skilling, in the name of skill development, they are including in the name of skill development. They are making this child as a slave for Brahmanical capitalist. The Brahmanical capitalist, the Brahmanism mixed with the capitalism. So both are enemies for the nation. So one is Brahmanism, one is capitalism. So So they are anti-constitutional. Both are mixed now in the name of new education policy. The new education policy is creating the both which are enemies in the name of the new education policy.
And do you see this calendar correlating to that
100%, 100%. Because if you see the calendar, the Aryan invasion is myth. So what about the genetic science, the DNA? CCMB clearly mentioned, they clearly given the report, whatever the Rocky God, DNA report says about the, the Aryans, the Brahmins DNA is not at all there. In India, only the 98% there are Dravidian DNA is there in India. That means Brahmins are migrants, they are not natives. If the Brahmins are migrants, how can they claim as a natives of Hindus? So Hindus are natives, Brahmins are not Hindus. They are the Vaidikas, their religion is Vedic religion, their life is Vedic life, they are not an Indian life. So they are claiming, they are claiming these native people, the native Harappa. For example, you take, what do you mean by the Harappa? Harappa civilization. Hara is nothing but Shiva. Appa is a father. So Shiva is the father of this Harappa culture, this Sindhu civilization. So that means Shiva is not a god of Hindu. He is a god of Hindu. He is not a god of Brahmin. So he is not a god of Aryans. So Rama is a Aryan god and Krishna is Aryan god, but Shiva is not a Aryan god, is a local god. So that is the reason why Ambedkar wrote about the myths, the riddles of Hinduism, particularly Rama and Krishna. So he clearly mentioned that this is a fictitious story of these migrants. They created that they are the natives.
Since you have quoted, since you are talking about Ambedkar, I'll come back to you with that question. That there are allegations that Ambedkar also agreed that there is nothing called Aryan invasion or Aryan settlement.
So that's what that is also wrong statement, because Ambedkar at that time there is no DNA science and technology. So basing on the linguistic language education or linguistic knowledge. So Ambedkar came conclusion that there is a link between the European literature and also Indian literature, like Sanskrit literature. He studied in German about the Sanskrit. So he studied about the European wording or literature is linked with the Indian literature like Sanskrit. So that's what he came to conclusion, is that both are same. Both are same. Brahmins also Indians. But that is not true. If you see, after Ambedkar also realized that it is not a Veda Bhumi, it is a Naga Bhumi. It is a land of Nagas.
He also writes about that in his volumes.
Yes. He realized that and he wrote also. That's what he has taken Buddhism in the name of Naga's land. It is a Naga's land, Buddha's land, which is having the Buddhism. The Buddhism is a local God has created some localized knowledge. So localized path. But the Brahmanism Buddhism is based on the science and technology. Buddha never told that he is a god. He is just man. He is like a man and he created some path for liberation of the people.
So if you want to call something as Indian knowledge system, you would go to the Buddhist
way of
100%.
Thinking. In Buddha's period, you see Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya.
Why do you think IIT Kharagpur did not include all of that into their calendar? Since everybody, including them, might accept that Buddha is from India and Buddha is the original production of India, and his knowledge went from India to every other nation, at least in Asia.
Asian countries.
Yeah, all the Asian countries. Then why do you think that it is not included in this calendar?
Because Brahmanism always created the myth, always created the blind, the fictions. So these stories, they want to root out the Buddhism from Indian society to establish Brahmanism as a native religion or native rulers. That is the reason why they don't want science, they don't want knowledge society. They want only fiction society. They want only what you call the parasite society. Brahmins are parasites. They don't have the knowledge. Really, I am talking about the Brahmins. Why there is repeated, world repeated university, they are not created since 75 years. They are ruling this country. Why there is no reputed university at world level, top level, till the date? Why, how the Kharagpur IIT, or you take any IIT from India, so most of the Indian IITs are, they are becoming agraharas of Brahmins. They never depend upon the science and technology. If they depend upon the science and technology like Ashoka period, definitely we will lead entire world. But with the blind beliefs and superstitions created by the Varna system, created by them, caste system created by them, so they want to, the Brahminical hegemony, they want to establish thousands of years. So that is one of the major agenda behind the Brahminical hegemony. They want to change entire systems, including the education system also.
Wow! So this is this is a totally different perspective from an academic background professor. And let me come back to you, Naren, for that the genetic related data that you have worked on, and Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu also said that based on the genetic data, it can easily we can come to a conclusion that Aryan invasion or settlement, you call whatever, it definitely happened, and that is what Ambedkar also quoted in his writings. Is what he's saying. Would you like to spend a couple of minutes on that and explain?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it just before I get into that, it just struck me about that. I was just playing the thing what it said in my mind regarding that swastika thing. Like what Jerry explained so beautifully as always. Regarding the swastika, that pointing to the four directions. So there are different, what to say, ways in which it is projected, that four directions of the four winds. And so if that's the case, and if everything went out from India, then the swastika symbol, which is used by the Germans, since they are clutching so many straws, will they also go to the extent of saying that the Nazis were killing, creating a major genocide based on the swastika? So here, I read just a few days back, again the same propagandist coming up with a new theory that the swastika, it's not the swastika used by the Germans is not the actual swastika, but it is something like a twisted cross. You take a cross and twist at each end. Can you believe the amount of jugglery and the tap dancing that these people have to do to prove their theories? Because see, this is more like a two-edged sword. You carry something so far, then everything can just fall in your direction. But here where swastika is there and used by the Germans to kill millions, and here they're saying, no, this is not from us. But the rest all is from us. So if it is good, like that's what you see happening in the country also, that if it is good, it is from me. If it is bad, it was by somebody else. It was by Nehru, Mughals, British, whatever be the case. But if it is good, it is me. So yeah, so that is something. Okay, now the professor said something very nice regarding the Rakhi Grahi excavations, and of course that is kept under wraps to a major level. And the Rakhi Grahi excavations also prove to a major level that there is the majority of the DNA in this country is from the Dravidian culture, and not just from the Indian, not from the Brahmin culture at all. And just since you mentioned Ambedkar, I really love that gentleman. He was way ahead of his time, and yes, he did reject the theory of Aryan invasion. But let me just read one part of what he said in his book, Who Are the Untouchables, Part 3, Chapter 7. And he says, I'm quoting, okay, I'm not just paraphrasing, I'm reading. The third thing to remember is that Tamil or Dravida was not merely the languages of South India, but before the Aryans came. Let me repeat that point. Tamil or Dravida was not merely the language of South India, but before the Aryans came, it was the language of the whole of India, and was spoken from Kashmir to Cameroon. So, like literally from Kashmir till Kanyakumari. That's what he's saying. Now, if you look at the words before the Aryans came, it begs the question: from where? Right. So, I too, to give due respect to Baba Saheb, he was always reading, upgrading himself. So he was always ready to change his views based on the upgraded knowledge that was received. And then he goes on to say I'm again reading. In fact, it was the language of the Nagas throughout India. Again, the respected professor mentioned that point about the Nagas. And he says next, that is, Ambedkar says next, the next thing to note is a contact between the Aryan and the Nagas and the effect it produced on the Nagas and their languages. Strange as it may appear, the effect of this contact on the Nagas of North India, look at this, was quite different from the effect it produced on the Nagas of South India. So, it was not like Aryans in the north and Nagas in the south. Nagas was there across India. But the Nagas in North India absorbed the Aryan culture. So, just to read ahead, I'm reading, okay? The Nagas in North India gave up Tamil, which was their mother tongue, and adopted Sanskrit in its place. The Nagas in South India retained Tamil as their mother tongue and did not adopt Sanskrit, the language of the Aryans. This is Baba Sahib, the respected Baba Sahib himself. And if you look at it, it really points in the direction that even Baba Sahib agreed with the concept of Aryan migration, if not the invasion part, and how the hegemony that the professor also mentioned some time back absorbed the culture of the South, the Nagas who are there in North India to create a new culture, and then the South India. That is where, I've said this earlier, I'm saying it again, is that as a child, because my mother is from South India and I'm born and brought up in India, in Bombay, I used to get very surprised if we go towards Delhi, in Rajasthan, Gujarat, that's the northern parts of India, and you look at the way they're writing, their calligraphy, if I can say that, the way they write, and their temples, they're all, more or less similar. Their gods, their languages, the hymns. But the moment you enter South, the entire thing changes. The entire thing changes. So the way the architecture of the temples, their gods, their holy books, everything is different. Everything is different. I used to wonder. I never got any answers because nobody talks about these things. So this thing was there, and if you look at it, a very stark thing. In South India, the priests wear black, and in the North India, white is considered as holy and pure. So anyway, this is from what Baba Sahib Ambedkar said. Now coming next to of course, there is a Saraswati River argument also, but I'll leave that to Jerry, our expert, to speak on that. And okay, so I would encourage our viewers to just do a brief, just a search on Aryan debate genetics, or do a search on Aryan migration genetics, something like that. You'll get a ton of information. Now, I'm just reading something which is like a 2017 article in the Hindu, and here there is, it was written by Tony Joseph, who describes himself as an atheist who likes Buddha. He was the former editor of Business World. So he says earlier there was an argument that there was no major gene flow from outside to India in the last 12,500 years because of something called as a mitochondrial DNA, or the maternal DNA, MT, because that DNA comes from the mother, shows no sign of it. And then he says that this argument was found faulty because when it was shown that the Y DNA, the Y chromosome, which comes from the father, which makes a boy, did indeed show major gene flow from outside into India in the last 4,000 to 4,500 years, especially something called as the R1A DNA, which now is 17.5% of the Indian male lineage. So now, then the question comes as to why is it that the mitochondrial DNA in the last 12,500 years showed hardly any deviation? Because the mtDNA, or the mitochondrial DNA, as I said earlier, also comes from the maternal side. And the Bronze Age migrations, especially from the Iranian side and the European side, they are more sex biased. So the people who are migrating are basically guys, the males, not the women. So when they would come here and they would populate and they would have relations, and the children which would be born, obviously they would not be having the mitochondrial DNA from outside of India, but they would have the mitochondrial DNA from inside of India, because the mother is the same. But then if you compare that to the Y DNA, that would be a deviation in that, because the Y DNA comes from the father. So since the Y DNA is from outside of India, that is why 17.5% or the population of the Indian male lineage has that R1A chromosome, which is not from India. So the genetics, you cannot disprove genetics. It's hardcore facts. So, and that is where, and a couple of more things.
And
Yeah.
and it is a scientific methodology that
Exactly.
that these scientific methodologies are employed by the scientists to come to that conclusion. And since the book is produced by Tony Joseph and Hindu and Hindustan Times and Times of India, lots of other papers and televisions have also populated this news. But after that, is there any, apart from this calendar though, is there any refutation that you have seen, credible refutation, an
Not
informative
really,
refutation?
Not really, because see, there is this paper from a genetic chronology of the Indian subcontinent points to heavily sex-biased dispersal. This was made by 16 scientists led by Professor Martin P. Richards of the University of Huddersfield, UK, and they concluded, and I quote, genetic influx from Central Asia in the Bronze Age was strongly male-driven, consistent with a patriarchal, patrilocal, and patrilineal social structure attributed to the inferred pastoralist early Indo-European society. This was part of a much wider process of Indo-European expansion with an ultimate source in the Pontic-Caspian region, which is out of India, more towards Iran.
Yeah, that's Kazakhstan, Caspian
Yes,
region.
yes.
Yeah, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. Yeah.
Yeah, the Far East, if I
Central
can call
Asia,
it in that
yeah.
way. Yeah, Central Asia, yeah, which carried closely related Y chromosome lineages across a vast swathe of Eurasia between 5,000 and 3,500 years old. And this is precisely what the genetic data also points at. And Praveen, I would like to bring your notice to one thing which I always used to feel very bothered as to why this debate is even required. Because no country, Praveen, you have traveled the world more than I have, and there are the entire Australia is a migrated colony.
Right.
The entire US,
Correct.
the number one country in the world, is a migrated country.
The whole North America,
Canada,
in fact. Yeah.
The whole North America, even South America.
Yeah,
for
even
that
South
matter.
America for that
So
matter.
you go up to Canada, it is nobody debates all these things. Nobody debates. Then why are we so bothered about this? Because they want to show the whole thing is not your scientific achievements or not how you've contributed to the world. It's not how you have reduced poverty. It's not how you have reduced infant deaths, or if you're not how you have reduced caste-based divisions. No, nothing. There is no focus on that. They want to show that we are the purest. See this whole casteist mentality that is there. We are pure strain and you are diluted strain. It is that one-upmanship which has got nothing to do with human progression. It is basically trying to show that we are ultimate. That same, if I can draw a parallel, Praveen, between this mentality and what was there you see in German, which is where they try to show a superiority of the Aryan race. And that is precisely what they're trying to show, that we are undiluted and we are superior and we are the mother, we are mother of all science, mother of all mathematics, mother of all religions, mother of all languages.
Yeah, on that note, let me read what they have published in the calendar, and maybe what you're saying actually makes sense, because this is exactly what they are saying in the calendar. They say, I'm reading it from the calendar, and they say like this: a light from the west, the star arose in the east and travels steadily towards the west, sometimes dimmed and sometimes effulgent, till it made a circuit of the world, and now it is again rising on the very horizon of the east, the borders of the Sanpo, which is Brahmaputra river, 1,000-fold more affluent than it ever was before. So basically, the effort is to make what India today is 1,000-fold better, 1,000-fold affluent than what it was before, or what it taught the world. So Jerry, what do you think? What are the motives behind such quotations from Swami Vivekananda in 19th September 1893? That's exactly when he spoke these words. And now in the calendar they have published it, and they wanted to prove that is it a problem for us to be more straightforward with you? Why should any Indian be bothered, when such scientists are coming together and putting up a calendar and trying to come up with some content, some information that can actually boost the morale of Indians by saying that, we have given this world so much, we have given light to this world, and if that is true, why should we be bothered about it?
So, Praveen, rhetoric doesn't bake cake anymore.
Okay.
So, you will have to follow the scientific methodology to improve the country.
Okay.
So, the West developed because they followed the experimental science. Nothing else. Innovation, experimental science, and the values that the Christianity has given. So, if any country practices it, those countries will progress. If any country doesn't practice it, those countries will not progress, including China. For example, China is now in a middle income trap. If it has to develop, it has to be free. So there are basic ingredients that are given for every society. So I am concerned about this current because it is not about you and me, or it is not about Christians, Hindus, or Muslims, or anything. It is about each of us, our children. It is about our future. This has nothing. The calendar produced by IIT Kanpur is an antithesis of modern science.
Okay.
They begin the leaf. Secrets of Vedas. Tell me what is there in the secrets of Vedas. I am ready to debate with any of those people. What is there in the secrets of Vedas? There is absolutely nothing. So the entire modern science began by rejecting this methodology. For example, even in the Greece, Rome, or China, all of them followed the same methodology that all the knowledge is there in the text. But in the Middle Ages, the Christianity came and explicitly rejected it and said, God gave us the wisdom. God did not give all the knowledge in a book. God asked Adam to name the animal. So it is up to us to observe and experiment. Now, the points that I am mentioning are well researched by Peter Harrison, who is the Oxford University historian, as well as Michael Kant, and all of them are secular historians. All of them have come out with the books. Now, those experimental science, though it came out of the Christianity, anybody can practice. A Muslim can practice, a Hindu can practice, a Buddhist can practice. If you practice it, you will progress. Whereas IIT Kanpur, on the first leaf itself, they are taking us backward. For example, when you have corona, why don't you go to the Vedas and find me a medicine out of the Vedas? You will not, right? You will come back to the experimental science, right? So by trumpeting on the so-called wisdom of the Vedas, which is not there, you are actually giving a wrong picture to the people. We don't need this kind of rhetoric to boost. The real development in India will come when we follow the freedom, equality, the scientific temperament, all those things. Japan developed, South Korea developed, and Japan is not a Christian country. Japan has copied the values and they developed. India, I want India to be a superpower. That is my concern. I want the next generation to enjoy. But with this kind of the premier institute giving up their freedom by themselves, you think about it, it is an autonomous institution. Why are we giving autonomous institutions without government interference? To pursue the science, right?
Right.
This came in the Nalanda University was there, Takshashila was there, but none of them were autonomous. Autonomous university concept came in again in the Middle Ages, the Christian, at that time the Christian Europe. And the purpose behind the autonomous university was that without the government interference, you will be able to pursue the science and the truth. Whereas IIT Kanpur has given up this autonomous status and become a mouthpiece for the Hindutva government.
So your allegation, straightforward allegation, Jerry, is that now IIT Kharagpur and such institutions are talking, are dancing, doing a tap dance for the government's agenda? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, not just the government's agenda, the RSS agenda, which they have been practicing, which they have been building it for the last 125 years now. Now, the government is in their control, education institutions have become servants of them. Where was the scientific methodology? So then you don't need an autonomous institution. You better actually be a part of the government and do all these things. But taking the modern science, adding credibility and being an autonomous institution, giving an appearance, you are actually refuting the, rejecting the very purpose of giving you the autonomy.
Okay, okay. Right, thank you very much for those for those comments. And let me go to Professor Gali Vinod Kumar Garu for his final comments. Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually now all the central university, previously it is central university, before Congress government it is the central universities are the Agraharas. Now the entire state universities also became the Agraharas Brahmanism. How? Because
so you're using peculiar words like Agraharas,
yes,
and,
Agraharas,
Brahmanizing,
yes,
stuff like that. And
yeah, the Agrahara is nothing but a Brahmin street.
Right,
Brahmin street.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they are becoming Brahmin streets. Or no, because the Brahmanism is manipulating entire the things, including education policy. So previously it is Congress, during the Congress period, only the central universities are Agraharas. Now the state universities also become Agraharas of the Brahmins.
What do you think is the solution?
Because the solution is that the education is a state part. Actually, it is the state list previously. The central government, in 1976, in the amendment, 42nd Amendment Constitution, they changed it into concurrent list. Because now the concept of the United States of India, actually, if you read the 1919 Act and even the 1935 Act also, you can find out the United States of India, not the Union of India. So Union of India is the one of the concept which the Brahmins wanted to capture the entire India in the name of the Union government. So there is no state is not independent, like a USA, United States of India, America is every state is independent. It's making its own policies, its own agenda, its own constitution, its own Supreme Court. But in India, there is no independence of the states. There is no, at least state doesn't have the power, at least education policy, at least employment policy, health policy. They should depend in the name of the, now one nation theory. Now one nation theory, one GST, one education policy, one ration card. These are the one party ruling. Ultimately, they want to rule one party. That is Hindu party. That is a BJP party. They want to rule this country in the name of BJP. That is in the name of national party, nationalization of Brahmanism.
Do you think producing content like this by premium institutions like IIT Kharagpur
100%.
is part of that agenda?
Yes, it is a part of that agenda only. Because now new education policy, what is a part of why new education policy is implementing all the states with the compulsion, except the Tamil Nadu. Except the Tamil Nadu, they are opposing strongly. Even Telangana also binded. New education policy. It is a policy. Education policy is a state policy. Actually, state must do that. Why central is, by compulsion doing? Because in the name of the one nation theory, one nation policy. So that is that leads, one nation theory leads to endangerous, like they will become the racist like German Nazis. So they want to symbolize this nation as a one nation. So, but it is not, it is anti-constitution, because we in the constitution we adapted the multicultural system, multi-secular system, so multi-regional system, multi-language system. But what about the question of you are imposing Sanskrit as a national language? Is it recognized by the constitution? At least Ambedkar anywhere he mentioned about that Sanskrit as our mother tongue, or it is a Vishwaguru. Now the concept of Vishwaguru is coming in the name of new education policy. What is the ultimate aim of the new education policy? To become India a Vishwaguru. That means the Indianization of Brahmanism. The Brahmins, nothing but they are the racist. They are the racist like the Aryans. The Aryans are like German race. The racist, white racist. This concept North India is nothing but a vice racist concept, like, North America you take, North India you take, North Australia you take, North China you take, anywhere the North concept are dominating the racist concept. The North India also dominating the racist concept in the name of the one nation theory. Now Jamili elections are coming. So after Jamili elections, they completely change the constitution. They want to change the constitution. In 2022, they will, definitely they will build the Rama temple. In the name of Rama temple, they also tells about we have one God, that is Rama. So we have one nation, that is India. Not India. Coming days they want to become a Article 1, they want to change into Hindustan. They will definitely change the Hindustan like Pakistan. Because the Taliban Islamicization or Hinduization of this criminal mentality or the racist mentality coming days, the secular concept of the constitution, the welfare concept of the constitution, individual liberty of the constitution, all religious are equal before the law, are treating equally all the religions. But in coming days only you have to, definitely you must be the Hindu Christian, that's all. You must accept that first of all I am a Hindu. Then only you should accept that I am a Christian. In coming days compulsory, that will become a very compulsory. Because definitely they want to become Hinduization of the this Indianization, or it is nothing but Brahmanization. Okay, it is okay, Hinduization it is okay, Indianization it is okay, but Brahmanization in the name of the Hinduization, in the name of the Indianization, they are implementing all the cultural, educational and the socio political, the hegemony of the Vedic culture. So Vedas are only the holiest scripts, the holiest, the culture, Vedic culture is the holiest culture. It will become, the Vishwa Gurus are becoming this culture only. That means the education policy will create the Vishwa Gurus. We created mathematics, we created science, we created technology, we created plastic surgery.
This is what they're
yes,
trying to propagate.
Yes.
Though they didn't do it.
Yes, they're doing that same. For example, if you take Vinayaka, Vinayaka, what do you call Vinayaka Chauthi? So Vinayaka, Lord Vinayaka, they are telling that Shiva, he done plastic surgery to God Vinayaka, Lord Vinayaka. So likewise, Pushpaka Vimana, they are telling that we invented Pushpaka Vimana at the time of the Ravana. Rama invented, Rama's time, Ravana invented the Pushpaka Vimana. Pushpaka Vimana is nothing but to be invented the aeroplanes, planes previously, thousands of years ago. Like that they are claiming. They are claiming that we are Vishwa Gurus for all technologies. All technologies are there in the Vedas. But why you are behind in science, producing the knowledge? Why you are behind with the Singapore at least? Why you are behind at least Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal? So you are behind all these small countries, like those are dependent upon India. How the India will become a Vishwa Guru without the basic knowledge, basic technology, all the indigenous knowledge? They are claiming that all the Bahujans, SC/ST, BCs are producing the knowledge. They are producing the grain, they are producing the agriculture system, everything they are producing, but claiming, who are claiming the knowledge? The Brahmins are claiming.
Right.
Actually, the producers are the non-Brahmins, the Brahmins are claiming the knowledge, but in the name of the local people, they are claiming the rulers, they are claiming their land, but this land belongs to Dravidas, Dravida land it is.
So look, at the outset you feel like you have serious opposition to this kind of content.
100%. This is our land, this is our, we must rule, become not the Brahmins. Brahmins are not Hindus. We are the Hindus. Definitely this is my land, this is our land, we should rule.
Right, final comments from you, Naren. Looks like you're mute.
For example,
yes,
I will tell you.
Right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that was a great talk by the professor, and of course, if I can put it in these words, I would love to see, and I look forward to see my country becoming the Vishwa Guru, to be honest with you, because I'm sure that our people are smart enough, and we are probably one of the most hardest working people in the world. But this entire, absorption of culture and claiming, things, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. when you have nothing in the present to show it, you've got barely any evidence in the past, you're making a fool of yourself. And as an Indian, as a respectable, as a self-respecting Indian, I find it offensive. You know, something like, you know, Kamala Harris has Indian roots and they're applauding. Sundar Pichai, Indian roots. But they are never claiming themselves to be as Indians. No one of these people, like somebody, Twitter CEO became Indian. Yeah, but they left India. Why did they leave India? Are they claiming themselves to be Indians? Are they doing something for India? No, but this entire mindset is catching up so rapidly and people are actually taking pride in it. And no one is, you know, questioning as to what are we aiming to achieve. We are probably one of the lowest happiness index, one of the widest disparity in income. People are literally committing suicide by thousands. One of the largest population of below poverty line people in this country is there. And so what are you taking pride in? In a culture which you have nothing to prove, and just by showing superiority over others. In the past, let's assume everything was true. Let's assume, Praveen, for the sake of argument, everything is true. What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve? No other culture behaves like this. You'll never hear, okay, XYZ minister in the US Senate is a migrant from London or from UK or from Ireland. None of those countries claims that, because that person is gone. It's over. Why he is gone, that is a different point. But I really hope that this country goes beyond propaganda, learns to use its extremely rich collection of youth, give them the right education. And you know what I would love to see is India becoming a Vishwaguru in setting, say, educations, like what Professor said, standards in fair education for everyone, appropriate health standards for everyone, you know, abolishing the caste system in entirety, you know, raising the standard of living, setting the world standards, becoming a Vishwaguru in those areas. We have got nothing. We are sliding from bad to worse. At this time, in many areas, we are even below Bangladesh. So what are we tom-tomming about? I would really, you know, it's not that I hate my country, I love my country, I don't believe there is any other country better. But this is actually an embarrassment of a national scale, and an institution at the level of IIT Kharagpur doing these things. And what I would have really appreciated because it's an educational institute, what I would have really appreciated, assuming they had made this calendar, let's assume they did this and they're backing it up 100%, they would really have my respect and the respect of the critics and other experts as well, if they would have opened the floor for a right discussion, like what we see in the West. But what we see in the Hindutva propagandists is that none of them who are becoming the flag bearers of knowledge and science and everything, none of them come for a mutually respectable discussion, dialogue or debate. They all run away. They go behind the scenes. They take up all these big placards and banners and set up all propaganda under it. Do you have no self-respect? If you're really so much keen and so much clear about your points, why don't you come for a discussion? As Brother Jerry rightly said, why don't you come for a debate? When I set up a panel, come for a debate, let us discuss it out. Maybe you're right. Maybe what Brother Jerry said was wrong. Maybe what the professor said was wrong. Maybe what I said was wrong. Come for a discussion. Everything is behind closed doors and you go for it. This is not the way in which a culture that is supposedly mature and a system that is having a good academic background in place grows and enriches itself. That would be my 2 cents.
Right. So that was about for today's program. And Professor Vinodkar, you had a last point to say. Yes.
Actually, we are Vishwagurus at the time of Ashoka period. So we have the GDP. So before independence, our GDP is more during the British time. Even during the ancient the Ashoka period and even Mughals period, you take for even Nizam period also, in the Nizam dynasty.
Yeah, the Hyderabad.
We are richest person.
Yeah.
So why India is backward? after 75 years of independence, the Brahmins are ruling this country. So-called Vishwagurus are ruling this country. Why India is backward in education? Why India backward in health? Why India is backward in all aspects? Because your blind ruling of this country, your hegemony, Brahminical hegemony. You want to, rule your hegemonical culture, your hegemonical, literature, hegemonical things. But that is not correct. Baba Sahib Ambedkar clearly mentioned that. Clearly, he wanted from India as a strong nation basing on the liberty, equality, fraternity and justice, which are defined in the Constitution of India. Where is the justice for Dalit Christians in India? Why Christians, Dalit Christians are not treated as a human beings at least? Why they are, killing? Why they are not allowed at least to get reservations? By converting a faith, your religion is not allow them to, pray at least God and goddesses. They are treating as untouchables. So this is the situation because of your religious culture, your caste culture is promoting. So that is the reason why. So in India, Baba Sahib Ambedkar wanted the casteless society. Baba Sahib Ambedkar wanted the superstitious less society. Baba Sahib Ambedkar wanted a scientific temper society. Baba Sahib Ambedkar wanted the education for liberation of individuals, liberation of the society. That is the essence of education.
Right.
He wanted that type of education system, not a new education policy to become an Indian citizens as slaves for the Brahminical corporate sector.
Right.
So that is ultimately from Baba Sahib Ambedkar. He stated clearly that two enemies are for this nation. One is Brahminism, one is capitalism. So in the name of new education policy, like the Kharagpur or whatever the Agraharas of Brahmins, they wanted to create the Brahminical hegemonic India, and one thing, the other thing is capitalistic hegemonic India. In the name of the upper caste landlords, they want to depress and suppress this Bahujan Samaj. So that is the reason why ultimately my final verdict is that definitely we must oppose the Brahmanism, we must oppose the casteism, we must oppose the religious fundamentalism. So whatever the Constitution says about the liberty, equality, fraternity and justice is the ultimate, and the secularism is the ultimate. The constitutional aims and objectives are ultimate. The Constitution is supreme, not the religion is supreme, not the Prime Minister is supreme, not the one nation theory is supreme. The constitutional principles only supreme. That we must educate.
Right. So the constitutional principles are actually on toss by the efforts of Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, is what Dr. Gali Vinod Kumar Garu, a professor, is trying to say, and this calendar was dedicated to the Center of Excellence for Indian Knowledge System, IKS is what they call it, and it is the advisory team consists of Professor Virendra Kumar Tiwari, Professor Amitabh Ghosh, MD Srinivas, Sanjeev Sanyal, Anil D. Sahasrabuddhe, Clemency Montiel, which is a professor of mathematics, and Professor V. Desai, Professor Somesh Kumar, etc., Subramaniam and K. Dubey. So it's too many renowned professors as the advisory board, and even after that, the calendar is actually going through a lot of criticism, and the days to come, in the weeks to come, we will be taking deeper dive into every month of the calendar. For example, this month we will be spending some time again, a couple of episodes at least, on the month of January, which talks about India's sacred space and the arguments that the calendar is trying to present. And if there is a website that this calendar cites to, we will go there and we'll try to connect with the professors and the advisory board and try to get more information and more evidences that if they have to present for the Indian citizens. Also, if you out of the viewers, if you know anybody from the IIT Kharagpur, the panelists or people who contributed to this calendar, you can always refer them to us so that we can contact and invite them for a meaningful discussion where we can always get enlightened, get more education, get more information on why and how they could arrive at these conclusions, what they are presenting in the calendar. So that will be our agenda for the next one full year. In 2022, Rakshana Television will be engaging in a discussion with this calendar and trying to bring the truths from actual history, actual science, and a lot of panelists from different walks of life and different universities of India will be participating in these discussions. And please be watching, and please continue to pray, continue to support our efforts, as this effort is a result of contributions that you all make and the prayers that you all make. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time we meet in Eye Opener, be safe, be healthy, wear masks, and be aware of the trends that are happening, especially with the surge in coronavirus with the Omicron's advent these days. Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you, sir.